All right, from the big-time SEC to the big-time Sun Belt, we're talking Troy, a 4.5-point road favorite at Texas State. We've talked way more Texas State than we've talked Georgia on this podcast so far this year. This game carries an over-under of 52.5 points. Kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. There's rain likely for this game, but not much wind. Do watch the weather, though, as storms are expected on Friday night, and if that pushes into Saturday afternoon, evening, we could be talking about some impacts to the game. Just keep an eye out there. A win by either team locks up bowl eligibility, which would be Texas State's first bowl game ever since coming up to the FBS, which is really exciting. I kind of feel like it's inevitable for Texas State at some point, but we'll see if they can lock it down at home this week on, I do believe it is their homecoming. Texas State has also never beaten Troy. They're 0-8, but they did nearly hand them their third loss of the season last year. Not bad, considering Texas State was pretty poor, and Troy ended up winning 12 games. Like I've said, we've talked 3 more Texas State games this season than I thought we would. I hoped that we could have talked about the Bobcats because they have this new exciting coaching staff and offense, but I didn't know if we'd actually get the chance to. But hey, here we are, man. They continue to roll both offensively and defensively. They're 10th in offensive success rate, 19th in EPA per play, and the pass rush is there too. Ben Bell, I've talked about him a couple of times here. He still leads the country in pass rush win rate among the primary defensive linemen. Troy's offensive line has had some issues this year, so I think that there is a chance that they could be able to get in there. Troy, their running back, Kamai Vidal, he leads the nation in rushing yards. And the reason I knew that without even having to look it up is because the Pro Football Focus kept putting out the Power 5 leader in rushing yards. And everyone's like, why are you doing this? Like, there's a different leader. And Vidal is the current rushing yards leader with 954 yards. He averages nearly 3.6 yards after contact. Texas State is 41st in EPA per rush allowed, so a pretty good run defense. And Troy's defense is on a roll too. They've allowed 10 total points in their last 3 games heading into the bye week that they are now coming off of. There was Army's quarterback was a backup. They played Arkansas State, but they held Georgia State on the road just 7 points. I see you made a note here that Texas State did beat Troy in 1997. Sorry, as a member of the FBS. I should have pointed that out. They're 0-8 against Troy in the FBS. That's my fault. Thanks for the clarification there, though. I do appreciate that because I know some people were like, what are you talking about? Texas State in their last 2, it's not been great. They squeaked out a last-second win against ULM and then lost outright in a game that they really should not have, that they were in control of, to Louisiana. They've kind of played everyone's level. They're kind of like Florida State. Florida State's played everyone's level. Texas State's kind of played everyone's level. They allowed 36 points to Southern Miss. That Nevada win was closer than it needed to be at home. We just talked about ULM. So I'd like to see them play to their level, not down to their opponents. But if they're playing to their opponent's level, pretty good week to do so.
Yeah, no doubt, Brett. And this is going to be a good game. It's got a watchability score of 5.8, which, is actually, if I almost feel like I need 2 scales, one for a Power 5 matchup, one for a G5 matchup, not to do anything other than to delineate really what the importance of these games are at their respective levels, because when the main component is average quality, I mean, there are some G5 programs who are in the top 40 by power ratings, but there aren't many. So when that's the main component, these watchability scores get almost automatically downgraded for G5s because they're on the scale of the P5s, which, as we know, in some cases that's appropriate, and many it's not. So 5.8, it could probably be better. It's definitely better in terms of impactfulness in the Sun Belt and in the G5 ranks. So my model makes this one Troy minus 7.5. It's a 71% win expectancy for the Trojans. At 5-2, coming off 4 straight wins, this is the best Troy's resume metrics have been all season. But more importantly, Trojans 3.3 K-Ford rating, that's a season best. The offense is number 86, which is decent for a G5 team. But the story is the Trojans' defense. I had this unit number 32 coming into the year. So I thought they were going to be good. But after 3 straight games giving up no more than 7 points, again, you can argue about the opponents, and I get all that. I'm adjusting for all that. This unit's risen all the way to number 21 nationally. This is an elite unit, regardless of your Power 5 or G5 designation. Like, you don't want to mess with this Troy defense. For Texas State, it's been an incredible season, 5-2 as well. Bobcats have 2.6 more wins than my preseason realistic expectations projected through Week 8. Simply put, only Jacksonville State and James Madison are exceeding expectations by a larger margin than Texas State. It's just the Bobcats are having a phenomenal year. I hope they get that 6th win. If not this week, then at some point, so they can go bowling. Program deserves it. They've been building, and it's really coming to fruition for them here in 2023. Furthermore, on Texas State, only Oklahoma and Duke have improved their K-Ford rating more this season than Texas State, whose rating is up a full 8 points compared to what it was in the preseason. I was much too low on the Texas State team this year, in particular on the defensive side of the ball. They had so much turnover, I really didn't know what to make of it, and they have played much better on that side. Bobcats ranked now number 75 on offense, 93 on defense, so the offense is still the better unit, but the defense is so much better than I projected in the preseason. That's why you've got more than a touchdown of upgrade for this team overall since the preseason. Both teams coming out of their off week yet again. No rest advantage here. Troy should have the advantage on both sides of the ball. Their defense is the biggest challenge for the Texas State offense that they'll face all year, and it's not really that particularly close. So it'll be a big challenge for that Texas State offense. It's worth mentioning, though, Brett, Troy welcomes South Alabama to town next week. Those two teams are neck and neck in the West Division projections for me. I mean, they're like literally separated by tenths of a percentage point when it comes to who has the best chance to make it to the Sun Belt Championship game. Trojans cannot afford to be peeking ahead. My numbers like them in this game, but if they're not giving their full focus to Texas State, they will lose this game. With a win, Troy would edge ahead of South Alabama in that race to win the West, at least for 1 week when they play next week. A loss would make next week essentially a must-win for the Trojans. It's already teetering on that. You lose here, there's no doubt. For Texas State, a win does keep them in the mix in the West Division, but a loss effectively ends their surprise contention for the West Division title. Bottom line, Troy minus 7.5, 29% chance that Texas State earns its second ever win against Troy, first ever, as you mentioned, in the FBS ranks. If you go back to the FCS, or maybe at the time as Division I AA, the Bobcats' overall record against the Trojans is 1-12 all time, all levels.
Yeah, and you said that the program deserves it, and they absolutely do. I've worked for Texas State. That administration probably didn't deserve a bowl win. They've made some very poor hiring choices, but I'm rooting for them because it's really awesome to see the turnaround in both culture and program that Texas State has had recently. But to me, to be honest, Troy is still near the top of the league, if not the top of the league. Even on the road, I probably lean the Trojans with the points. It's at a dead number. It's moved a point in Texas State's favor, but when you're talking about 5.5 to 4.5, that's not really much of anything at all. I'm just waiting to see what the best number I can get is. Maybe a little bit more Texas State money will move it down a little bit, and then I'll probably play back on Troy.